Hello, I'm Robin Gibson, and this is the Harvard House Money Morsel. Welcome back. Thank you for joining us on what is probably the coldest morning of the year so far in Howick, our first proper frost. Please don't forget to like and subscribe and click the bell so that you get a notification of when we release a new video. I'm sitting again with Willie Pelser, Chief Economist of Harvard House. Welcome, Willie.
Morning, Robin.
Yeah, it is a bit bitter this morning. So, Willie, we often talk about the fact that what we spend a lot of time doing is looking at data. And I know that as our economist, you probably look at more data from a global perspective. So please tell us what's happening in this space.
Yeah, Robin, it's there's a lot of things happening, and we're waiting in principle for interest rates to get a sign that interest rates are going to decline. I think the whole world's waiting for that in every economy type of thing. But yeah, the things that sort of flowing over my desk at the moment that I have a look at is specifically China. Mm-hmm. And there's been a lot of talk at the beginning of the year that the massive recession is coming somewhere this year. So obviously we focus on that data. So what we see in China at the moment is their sort of PMI numbers, which is a production managers index. It's collated all over the world for each economy. That's sort of slowing down perspective. So indication that the economy is not firing on all cylinders. Okay. So that data is confirmed, yes, that we're struggling a little bit. But interesting on their consumer-related data, they came out of this lockdown, they're still traveling, they're still spending, not just in their own economy, but globally. And we see it through the luxury industry, LVMH, Richemont, and all of those shares just performing well because of this type of thing. So if we jump across the globe, depending on how you want to circle it, we go to the US, and they have lots of statistics that they estimate. So what we had yesterday specifically is the second quarter GDP estimates. Now, some of the previous estimates came out that the economy will sort of grow at 1.4. The previous number was 1.7, and yesterday projected 2% GDP growth came out. So it looks like they're avoiding this recession concept. And the implication of looking at that data, then suddenly the dollar strengthens substantially because, their economy is doing better. And then on the counter argument on that is, okay, but if they're doing better and they're still fighting inflation, maybe they hike even more. So that whole phase is now running through. And then the outflow of all of these data for an economy like ourselves, again, was through the rand. Yes. So we saw the rand strengthening a little bit. And then, yesterday, this movement on the dollar actually caused the rand to sort of, I won't call it a blowout, but suddenly weakened again type of thing. Yes. And in our own economy, the stats that came out yesterday that took me a little bit to some extent by surprise. There's a sentiment indicator around the consumer which looks at the higher income earner, middle income earner, and lower income earner. Okay. And there were all three sort of shocking numbers, the worst numbers ever on record for those three entities as well. Yeah. But worse for those with higher income, and I think it's an element of those people can flee, they can run type of thing, and less negative in the lower income bracket type of thing, because we have to make ends meet, we have to go through the economy type of thing, and then we all have the overhang of our own economic factors like load shedding and all of those type of things. So, but I want to throw a question back to you.
Okay.
So holistically, Robin, just back to that is, this momentum is there, but the question is, are we going to shoot the lights out from an economic performance perspective, or is the recession coming? I'm not on the page that it will be a fully fledged recession with a big R word in front of it. That's what I'm reading from the data. So back to my question to you, is we always talk about the generating capacity of Eskom and so on. Yes. Did you listen to a very interesting talk on the grid?
Yes. And
I would like you just to enlighten the readers on that, because it's not all known how the grid work and what's the emphasis on the grid.
Well, very interesting, obviously, because Michael did his presentation, he looked what was coming. And I think in one of the presentations, somebody did ask about the grid. And the Daily Maverick actually hosted a panel discussion with a number of key individuals. And there were a couple of key takeaways. I don't have a lot of time.
So, Robin, if I'm going to interrupt you, the grid is what these are those power lines.
It's all very well building a solar farm or a sort of wind turbine, but how are you going to get it into the grid, and is there enough capacity? I think the interesting thing is that the kind of feeling is that in order to really unwind the power that's coming, there's definitely lots of power coming on a private scale, but to unwind it, we need grid, and we need to build about 2,200 kilometers a year of grid. The estimate at the moment is the most, with the best will in the world, that Eskom can do is about 400 kilometers.
Okay.
And the most interesting comments actually came from the CEO of the largest black-owned sort of procurement company. So they are building wind farms, they are building, putting up lines, and they're building transmission stations. And he was very complimentary about the individuals he worked with in Eskom. I thought that was a good takeaway. He said, we all paint Eskom with a negative brush, but there are some incredible people there who are doing amazing jobs. And his words were, they're the real heroes of South Africa.
Unsung heroes.
Yeah, exactly. The other thing that he kind of talked about was the skills deficit. And he said, one of our biggest challenges is the fact that this whole thing of renewable energy and the transition of energy is a global thing. There is an international shortage of electrical engineers. And he said so much so that they have just employed an experienced electrical engineer, and the salary package they had to offer from September last year to now went up by 100%. And so he said those are some of the challenges that they're facing. But what was quite interesting out of the whole thing is that we sometimes feel that nothing's happening, but there's far more happening in the background. And there are a lot of people, good people, capable people, who are addressing as many of the challenges as they can. And on some levels, government is coming to the party. So it is the challenge. The grid is the challenge. We need to ramp that up. But it certainly is going to be an interesting space in the years coming up. So it's not all negative. And maybe this reform thing that we've been talking about is happening, not as fast as we'd like, but it's definitely happening.
Robin, I think, thank you for that. Yeah. I often refer to the economy as we've got this engine and there's some cogs turning, and, we have started it and it is moving, but unfortunately, the roads is full of potholes for the economy. So we're grinding forward. So back to the statistics, we are grinding at it, and hopefully in a year time we'll look back and say, wow, thank you for those reforms that has taken place.
Awesome. Well, it looks like the host became the question. Thank you for joining us, Willie. Thanks for those insights. Catch us next time. Please don't forget to like and subscribe. Bye-bye.